Dispatch operation is like the human nervous system. It takes in stimuli and sends out signals across the entire body. But what happens when there's a breakdown in the dispatch center? Just imagine how disastrous it would be if the nervous system sending out signals or sends out the wrong one. Just like someone who may have their finger on a hot stove and they keep touching it because their nervous system is not sending out any signal and it melts off their skin. Just like your survival hinges on your nervous system working properly, also your operation is heavily impacted by how well your dispatch is functioning. And that's why on today's episode, we'll be doing a deep dive into dispatch operation and how can we embed operational excellence into it. And to do that, I'm excited to bring back Mario, our VP of Transformation, who works with our partners to optimize their dispatch operations. Mario, how are you doing today, buddy?
Hey, Yasin, I'm doing good and I'm glad to be back. And like I've said in the past, right, dispatch does seem like the natural progression to the order to cash cycle right after customer service, right? And it's funny, I mean, since I've been talking about the North American experience that I've had with the airline there, dispatch is like the ATC at the airport, control tower. They're overseeing the takeoff, landing of aircraft, routing them to the right terminal and gate, right? Therefore, dispatch is as critical as them because the key attribute is routing and clear communication, right? Similar to any effective dispatch operations, it's vital for a repair and maintenance company to deliver timely quality service.
Absolutely, and especially when we talk about scheduling technicians. So dispatch is the heart of your operation. So Mario, like, where does dispatch start and where does it end? Can you give us like a 5,000-foot view of the scope of dispatch?
So, like you mentioned earlier, dispatch starts right after, customer service gets the service order. And the key objective of the dispatch team is scheduling the right technician for the right job at the right time with the right parts, right?
100%.
And what you could do is generally the dispatch function can be split into two kind of parts. One is the admin side and the other is the actual scheduling and routing, right? And why split it in two parts?
What do you mean by the admin side?
So why do you want to split it
what do you mean by the admin side?
The admin part is more about providing updates on ETAs, giving updates or cross-functional communication, providing an update on the technician. So that's the admin part, making sure that the customers get an update or notification on when the technician is arriving,
updating portals,
and then updating the dispatch team as well if there is an information from customer on when they expect the technician to be on a specific time or date, right? So that needs to be communicated back to the dispatch team. And the other part, like I mentioned, the scheduling and routing, that's a key job, right? Because it requires specific skills in terms of being able to ensure that you have the right utilization of the technician and also, routing and mapping the technician's journey so that, there is no multiple truck rolls and they optimize the route for the day. So those are key roles of dispatch.
And why would you consider splitting them, Mario?
Because these are two different skills, right? So the routing and scheduling guy really needs to understand the tools and, technology around being able to schedule, optimize utilization of the technician and of the route. While the admin part is more
and develop a relationship with the technician, right? Like it's kind of like you can't really do the job well if you don't have a good relationship with the technician and how they work and what makes them tick, and it has a lot to do with communication.
Absolutely, and it's very important for them to understand the market that they are in also, right? Although today with various technologies, it's easier to use tools and technology like GPS tracking and scheduling to be able to use those. But that's a different skill set compared to the admin side, right? There you need someone that's better in terms of communication skills, interpersonal skills, coordinating with various departments. You'll be talking to the parts procurement team to check updates on parts. You'll be talking to the customer to provide updates on when the technician is on site and things like that. So you need a different skill set when you're on the admin side compared to the scheduling and routing.
Makes sense. And how do you measure the success in dispatch? Like, what are some of the KPIs that you look at to know whether or not like you're doing a great job in dispatch?
Well, the way you measure performance for dispatch can be split into two parts, right? Some KPIs that impact your customer experience, and others around efficiency, reducing cost of operation. So for the customer experience part of it, it's the turnaround time, on-time arrival rate, first-time fix rate, and of course, customer satisfaction rate. Those are customer experience impacting KPIs.
So when you say turnaround, so let's dig in a little bit. So when you say turnaround time, what do you mean by that?
Turnaround time is once you get the service order, how fast are you being able to attend to that service order or send your technician also?
Right. So it's from the time you get a service request and you input it or you receive the call, whether it's through email or phone call or portal, and you actually schedule the technician, you plot them on the calendar. Is that what you define as the turnaround time? That's the scope of it?
Exactly. It's from the time you receive to the time you fulfill the service, right? So, scheduling and making sure the technician is on site. So that's your turnaround
Makes sense.
time.
The next
one
you
is
said
on-time arrival rate. So making sure that once you schedule
what does that
this
mean?
technician, they are there on time, right? Because otherwise you're leading to kind of customer dissatisfaction. They're expecting the technician to be on a specific time. They probably stop work around that, equipment to enable the technician to kind of do the maintenance. So it's definitely going to have a huge impact on customer satisfaction.
Right. And I would assume that would be like a few hour window, like from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. or is it like a specific time they have to be there?
So of course there'll be a window of leniency there, because considering traffic and technician won't be doing only one job at a day.
There are variables
so it
there.
Depends on the previous job being completed on time. But yes,
makes sense. And what was the third KPI that impacts customer experience?
The other is for the first time fix rate, right? So remember we said that the dispatcher's job is sending the right technician with the right part at the right time, right? So if you don't send the right technician, for example, if the job requires an HVAC and let's say an plumbing kind of work to be done, and you don't check that before assigning the right technician, he might go there, fix one issue, and then you'll have to assign the job to another technician. So there's another truck roll. So, first time fix rate,
skills matching
and sending the right technician back with the right part.
First time fixer makes sense. Makes sense. And what are some of the other KPIs? Are those the top
efficiency
KPIs?
And bringing in cost reduction for operation. Those include technician utilization, technician productivity, cost per service call, and average time to travel per job. Those are some of the.
Can you break it just real quick for us? Like these four metrics?
Utilization is the percentage of time, right? The amount of time the technician engages in the work activity, actually fixing job, right? That's avoiding them doing a lot of admin work, a lot of traveling back and forth. So the actual time the technician spends on fixing jobs.
Absolutely, because what we found a lot of times is a lot of technicians just spend an ungodly amount of time on the phone with manufacturers, just waiting on the line to get a response or, updating the ERP. And what you're saying is that's not really considered productive
because
time.
You don't bill those hours,
or
right?
You
can't
proper
bill
utilization.
The unproductive time. So you're not billing them for the time that they spend updating ERPs or, spending time at the warehouse.
Or if you bill it, the customer will feel like they've been cheated.
Absolutely, yeah. And you don't want to do that, right?
Yep. Awesome. So what about technician productivity? What does that mean, and how is it different from utilization?
Being able to utilize a technician for the right job. So let's say you have about 8 hours a day for the technician. You're making sure that you assigned all the jobs for them, so you utilize their time for the day, the entire day.
Right.
So
no one's sitting.
sitting
so
idle.
you optimize like their schedule. Like you make sure that any openings in their schedule is appropriately allocated. Jobs are allocated to that, so they're not. And then there's no variation between one technician is fully productive and has jobs for the next few days, but then the next technician has no jobs for the day. And how do you manage that?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And the other one is cost per service call, right? You always want to reduce cost, and what you need to do is then look at the total cost of operation for dispatch and the number of service calls that you've completed. And you always want to see how we can improve that. And through these, through effective utilization, effective productivity. You can kind of reduce cost per call. Also optimizing your routes and scheduling. So yeah.
So I guess that's optimizing routes is where you said the average travel time is where you measure that.
And cost per service call as well. So cost per service call, you can reduce it through, optimization of technicians, better utilization, and reducing the time training of persons. So getting them cross-skilled on multiple jobs, hot side, cold side.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. And we'll probably put together some sort of a cheat sheet. I know we're throwing a lot of KPIs at you here, so we'll just make sure that there's some sort of a cheat sheet where you can reference a lot of these KPIs and definitions. And I'm curious if you're listening, what other KPIs do you track for your dispatch? And maybe if you're tracking some of the same KPIs we're sharing here, please let me know in the comments below. Like, what are some of the benchmarks you look at? What are some of those standards? I'm really curious. So great. So Mario, we talked about KPIs. Now let's talk about the most common breakdowns that impact dispatch. I know a lot goes into dispatch. So maybe let's narrow it down to the top 3 or 4 biggest pain point or most frequent pain points that you see when you are setting up or optimizing a partner's dispatch operation.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at reviews, right, both from customers and internally, we see there's a lot of problem with dispatch. But if you break it down to, like, let's say top 3 or maybe 4, the most important thing that we see, that gets kind of derailed is ineffective routing, right? So lack of real-time tracking and poor routing planning. Now, what happens is, let's say there's a technician that gets...
What would be a good example of that?
Let's say, for example, a technician gets delayed because of poor routing. Now, the customer is waiting there frustrated, right? That, the equipment is still not up and the technician arrives late. The customer is definitely going to give you a dissatisfied rating and maybe even start looking at other options, right?
And how do you spot inefficient routing? Like, which KPIs are you looking at to spot if there is inefficient routing?
Adjusting, right? So what we could do is definitely look at average travel time. That definitely impacts.
Okay.
It's also productivity, because you've got technicians scheduled for the entire day, so you're making sure that you have effective routing, and also the routes. So which is very important. And these days, like I mentioned, you have dynamic routing software to optimize routes, and you can also use GPS tracking to get real-time updates and be able to kind of also communicate to the customer about the ETA. So these are things you could use to be able to have effective routing.
Right. So you're looking at KPIs that impact routing. So travel time, on-time arrival rate, right? Hey, is it taking the technician longer or shorter to travel?
And then cost per service call as well.
Going on time, right?
Perfect. Cost per service call as well. I think that's another way of measuring effective routing.
Obviously, if you have ineffective routing, your cost will blow up, right? Either because the technician is missing other jobs, or because it's costing you more in gas, or the customer may be even canceling the service call because they didn't get there on time and they called on someone else.
That's a possibility.
And then so they're right. And would also CSAT, obviously you said customer review, so I'm assuming CSAT plays into this, or customer satisfaction
plays a big time. Also your cost, right? These days everyone's looking at improving how effective they are. So I think
and I think you touched on how you may fix it. You said you implement some sort of technology like GPS.
So you use GPS tracking. You can use a dynamic routing system. These days you have most of the logistic companies, FedEx and Amazon, they're using optimization through these routing tools, right? And they're able to schedule their routes effectively so that they can maximize their truckloads.
Absolutely. And some of these are even AI enabled. I mean, if you're using some fancy tool like IFS, right, it has built-in capabilities to automatically even schedule technicians and recommend the best routes, but there are also off-the-shelf tools for that. So fantastic. So that's ineffective routing. What other breakdowns do you also commonly see when you're examining a dispatch operation?
I think one other, and this could be across other functions as well, but poor communication, right? That's one of the biggest gap. So when I say poor communication, it means this inconsistent communication between stakeholders, between the dispatch team and the CS team, or the parts procurement team and the dispatch team, or even the dispatch team and the customers, right? These kind of causes a lot of
across the board.
Causes a lot of issues, again, CSAT issues, and impacts operations as well. So for example, right, let's say customer service received an information about the customers, updating the time that the technician needs to be at the site, right? And it's not communicated to the dispatch team. Now the dispatch team sent the technician on site, and the customer is not there. So increasing cost, waste of time, waste of fuel, and you're losing the efficiency of the technician. At the same time, we'll have to have another truck roll,
you can never
increasing customers' dissatisfaction as well. So
so, and what KPIs are you looking at to kind of spot poor communication? Because it sounds to me it's a little bit, I don't know, qualitative. Like, what KPIs are you looking at to like kind of trying to triangulate whether or not there is a breakdown in communication?
So one is definitely customer satisfaction, right? That's the key indicator. Clearly tells you,
you'll hear it. You'll definitely hear it from a customer if they miss the call.
Right? And the other is utilization rate. The technician utilization rate goes down because now going on wrong side where the customer is not available or not willing to get the part repaired at that time or maintenance conducted at that time. And therefore, the utilization is lower for the technician, increasing the cost of operation. So, of course,
makes sense.
Time
are you response time? What you mean, like turnaround time?
Yeah.
Right. So if there's an increase in response time, it's probably because the dispatcher is having trouble figuring out how to schedule a technician.
Correct.
And they
and it also means that it increases your end-to-end turnaround time from the time you receive the service call, because now you've gone to the wrong location at the wrong time, and you'll have to be rescheduled because you have other you may not have the time to wait there or wait for the customer because you have other service orders to complete, and therefore it increases your overall turnaround specific job. So
makes total sense. So, and in these cases, so how do you fix poor communication? Is it like training, or like what do you do?
I think training, of course, but the most important part, and I think you've touched upon this earlier, is to have everything centralized, one centralized communication system. Whether you're using your ERP or CRM like IFS, make sure that it's utilized cross-functionally, right? The adoption rate is very important, so that everyone is updating information on a timely matter. And information is easily available to everyone, right? So let's say CS gets an information, they update, IFS or dispatch gets a notification, and they can make necessary changes without impacting the customer.
Yeah, or maybe a centralized just like app, like Microsoft Teams or Slack or even WhatsApp, where you have the dispatcher, the technician, and everyone who's involved in that process in one channel.
Absolutely.
At least for internal communication, can smoothen a lot of these issues.
True, very true. I think anything that helps, better communication will help us improve the issue with poor communication. So,
fantastic. All right. So, what are some other breakdowns do you see?
Well, the other one related to poor communication would be lack of real-time updates, right? So poor communication is one, and then real-time updates. So where you don't have real-time status update on the technician, so technician moves from one job to the other, and he's probably delayed because he needs a specific information from an OEM. He's on call, right, to fix the issue, and it's delayed. So what happens is the next appointment is also delayed, and you don't have real-time update because you probably don't have the right tools and technologies that the team is using, which causes a lot of, customer dissatisfaction or breakdown in communication.
Yeah.
So.
And a lot of times where you also, maybe Mario, we see that is when you order a part and you're waiting for that part to come in before you schedule that service call, but then the parts arrives to the warehouse or to any drop-off point, but this system is never updated. You kind of wait until the customer complains like, hey, any update on the parts? And then you realize, yeah, oh man, it's been there for like a week. So updates on parts is key to make sure that you're on top of rescheduling a lot of these calls when the part is already on hand.
Absolutely.
So, and what KPIs do you use to kind of triangulate or troubleshoot lack of real-time information?
So one is, of course, the first time fix rate. The other, like you mentioned, right, with parts not coming or parts being in but not getting updated, it increases your turnaround time, right? Because now the part is there, you could have fixed it, but because of lack of real-time information, you did not dispatch a technician on time. So it increases your turnaround time, your utilization rate. And then, of course, it goes down, drops. And also your customer satisfaction goes down because, either you didn't provide the customer the right ETA because you don't have the update, or the customer is just waiting on information. Because real-time information could also send notification to customers by default that there's a change in, the service order, or any updates for the service order can be sent automatically to the customer. So,
absolutely. And how do you go about maybe resolving this breakdown, Mario?
Key part of this is, again, adoption of tools and technology. So whether you're using the ERP, CRM, make sure that, the team is updating information in a timely manner so that, it's available across all functions. Then also having real-time analytical tools like, GPS tools to monitor your technicians, dashboards to see how the information is available, and this all
inventory,
managing inventory and all of that. So so these are key kind of attributes on how you can improve real-time communication.
And I know you've covered some really good ground here, but any other breakdowns that you see that are more common and it has massive impact on dispatch?
One other thing is probably skills mismatch, right? Or, sending someone that's not...
That's a big one. That should be number one.
It should be. And this also means sometimes sending a technician that's not quite experienced for a job. So technicians are mismatched for the job. And what happens there is it's a huge impact on customer satisfaction. Now you have a technician on site who doesn't know how to fix it. He's either spending a lot of time with the OEM or reaching out to a senior technician and checking on how to
taking their time.
So now you're impacting the other technician's utilization as well because they are helping the junior technician or an inexperienced or unskilled technician fix a problem. Worst case scenario, the guy just comes back without doing anything and you've increased the truck roll. So
it has a domino effect. Not only we just wasted the technician's time, but we're wasting other people's time, like a senior technician, to provide that support, and we're taking them away from doing their job. And what KPIs are affected, or do you look at to troubleshoot insufficient or skills mismatch?
Clearly, utilization is going to be impacted because now not only are you spending more time trying to fix a job that you're not experienced or trained to fix, you're also impacting utilization of other technicians. And utilization is definitely one of the points. The other is customer satisfaction. The customer is observing, right? They see that you're taking longer than it would usually take to fix a small issue. You're spending more time on calls,
or you don't fix it at all.
Or you don't fix it at all, thereby impacting even first-time fix rate, right? And then also increasing your cost of service call, because now what happens is you have multiple truckloads, and the customer's not going to pay for you sending the wrong technician, right? So,
and that's why it's important to track the cost of service down to the call and to the technician, and you're able to segment the data, and you're not just looking at averages. Because if you're just looking at the averages, your averages lie, and it blends in a master technician's performance versus level 1 technician or a junior technician. And it doesn't really give you a real indicator of what's going on. And maybe you want to even segment it by equipment, because maybe, hey, this technician is really great at fixing combi ovens, but not ice machines or ice cream, right? So you gotta segment by a couple of variables here to really drill down and optimize your first-time fix rate, like you said, your utilization rate, and improve customer satisfaction. If you look at reviews, one of the most common reviews is, say, the technician couldn't fix the job either in a timely manner, or they didn't fix it in time, or they didn't fix it at all. And now their equipment downtime has been extended. So, and how do you fix this, Mario? How do you properly match technician skills with a job?
So one of the key things, and I was discussing just last week with one of our key clients, is making sure the technician skills are updated accurately in the ERP that you're using, right? Or the dispatch software. Not only are you updating their certification, it also you need to kind of inform the dispatch team on the confidence level of the technician on being able to fulfill a job, right? And then making sure if they are certified and trained on specific equipment. That will help kind of not only accurately dispatch the technician, so right technician, right place, right time. It'll also reduce the dispatcher's efficiency. So he's able to automatically plug in without having to check with the technician if they'd be able to fix the job, or the technician having time to spend reviewing the service order to see if that's something they can work on. So those are things I think you can.
Absolutely. And if your ERP is not advanced, would you recommend to do a skill matrix of sort, even in a spreadsheet?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could also do it on a spreadsheet. Just what they trained on, what their expertise are, and easy for the dispatcher to then assign the right people.
Absolutely. Makes sense, man. By having all of these, KPIs, and I appreciate you for sharing a lot of good examples here. Now, service companies can better understand the tangible effects of operational efficiency and implement targeted solutions accordingly, and be able to measure or troubleshoot and diagnose where problems in dispatch, or why these problems in dispatch could be happening. And we even have developed a survey, a diagnostic tool, where we have a bunch of probably 20 questions in there across people, process, technology, data, to be able to have a 5,000 foot view of what's going on in dispatch. So if that's something you wanna use to your own benefit, feel free to reach out. We wouldn't be charging you for this, but we're happy to share our diagnostic tool to be able to assess the maturity level of your dispatch function and where could there be some opportunities or gaps in dispatch, so to help you plug it. And there's no denying the importance of dispatch, and while breakdowns in this area can cause a direct impact on your profitability and your customer experience, but really any problem in dispatch can really jumble up the entire operations, right? And this doesn't just cause a commotion for your customer, it also impacts your team members as well, right? The technicians and your billing department and everyone else. So when the dispatch is in shambles, right, it can affect the heart of your service operation, your on-site visits and everything else. And in the next episode, we'll be talking about the KPIs used to measure the success and the common breakdowns, and how you can solve some of the other issues beyond dispatch and where there might be downstream impact. But before we wrap up here, I hope you gleaned a lot of insights from this episode. And if you found it helpful, do me a quick favor, give Mario a quick shout out here. I'm having him work extra time to bring you these insights. And also, like I always say, we only know so much about field service, and we're bringing our own experience and knowledge to this. But I would love to hear from you in terms of what have you found to work best in dispatch? What are some of the best practices, or maybe even what are some of the biggest problems that you're facing in dispatch, and we can crowdsource the solution to it together. So do me a quick favor, leave me a comment below letting me know what are some of the things that you examine in your dispatch operation, and then Stay tuned for our next episode because we'll be diving into the heart of the service operation, and that is field operation. That's it for now, folks. I hope you enjoyed this session. Until our next episode, stay tuned. And Mario, thank you so much for your insights today, and I'll see you on the next episode. God bless.